We are live. What's happening, brother?
What's going on, big brother?
Man, I'm doing great down here in H Town. It stormed all night, so I tend to sleep better when the rain's coming down. So it's no doing great, man. How you doing?
Good. It's springtime in California out here, so
Yeah, don't gloat, don't gloat, don't gloat. Well,
clear
just
skies.
yeah, that's nice, man. I'm trying to get out there as soon as possible
Yeah.
and spend a little time, and we come up with some more ideas. But hey, just want to welcome everybody to another episode of Motivation and Mindset. I am James Morris, President and CEO of TMC Solutions. We're a national staffing firm. We also own TMC Supply Chain, which is a national distribution and fulfillment network. And I'm here with my baby brother. Introduce yourself, bro.
I'm Jermaine Morris. I'm a certified coach and consultant. My practice is based around a DISC assessment, where I work under the focus of self-awareness without judgment, coaching and personal development programs.
That's great. That's good stuff. And to those of you that's listening, I'm a big believer of the disc profile. Not only am I a fan, but I'm a customer, as I like to say every week. We're just every week, Jermaine and I, we like to get together and we just have some very open, honest dialogue about things that go on, not just in the workplace, but at home. And so typically, me being a kind of a corporate America guy for so many years, I'll usually look at the business or the work aspect. And Jermaine, with his counseling background and expertise, he'll usually kind of cover the more domestic point of view, if you will. One thing I like to say every week is I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not prescribing anything. We're just two brothers that's getting out here talking, and we hope to say something that can be of encouragement or help to somebody else. Because I know a lot of us we're all going through the same things. Yeah. So today we talked about it, and we're going to talk about dealing with burnout. And that's a key topic, right? And I typically, throughout my career, I hear about the burnouts when we do our annual performance appraisal process, right? And that's where you talk to somebody about how they're doing. Sometimes it could be somebody that's doing a great job, and sometimes it's somebody that struggled. And then when you really get to the meat of it, they talk about being burned out, right? I'm having burnout. Excuse me. I'm not enjoying my job. I'm not happy. I'm getting to the point where I used to love my job, and now I hate coming to work. And so all the time, and it's not just during those performance appraisal times, but sometimes I get people that just walk into my office. And this could be anyone from a COO, CFO to a production operator. And so what I find myself doing is, how do I get to the root cause of that? So before we jump in too deep, maybe you talk to us a little bit about, I understand being burned out at work, because I've been burned out before. And even in times where I've talked to, say, Lene, my HR manager, about being burned out, she'll always bring up the work-life balance. Yeah. So, I'm going to talk about the work. Talk to us a little bit about the other side, the life, or the balance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have a lot of times we have an association with like life and struggle. Like they just go hand in hand. Like we just absorb this idea of that life is supposed to be hard. Life is supposed to be challenging. My life is hard. It's supposed to be, and so we just kind of like adapt this sometimes to the point to where we're not aware of where our threshold is, or we don't give ourselves the ability to have a threshold. That we tell ourselves that it doesn't matter what happens. You still gotta change these diapers. You still gotta wake up with these kids. You still gotta figure out a way to wipe this one's nose and get this one to practice, and still show up to this job, and still show up for this mate, and still show up for yourself, and still and we'll just say that, well, that's just life. That's just work. And we can find ourselves just like, they say burning the candle at both ends, but then lighting the match under the middle. So sometimes that burnout can just start to happen to where you're just like, we don't give ourselves enough grace to say, I need to sit down. Like, I need a break. We wait until we're on the other side of it. where we can't sleep. We got stomach issues. We always got migraines, tension, soreness in the back, and then because you're clenched all the time.
Sure.
Can't eat, flying off the handle, always irritable. We wait till we're so far in the red before we recognize that, okay, maybe I need to take a break, take a pause.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I could tell you that, and I took a lot of lessons from corporate America that I brought into running TMC. Yeah. And we used to deal with that, right? And I saw it more, the more that I began to move up the chain and up the ladder, the more feedback that I would get on people really being burned out, right? Yeah. And I'm kind of old school. I'm kind of from the school that you were just talking about. Like, man, you're a man. I mean, quit whining. Yeah. That's part of life. Get up, you go to work. Yeah. But some of the things that we used to do proactively, and I'd like to hear, I'll take it from a work side, and I definitely want to hear your input. So, things that we could do to proactively address burnout. Yeah. So the biggest thing that we do is everyone gets 2 weeks paid vacation. Okay. And, for years, and I'm very guilty of this, I would be the guy that would say, you know what? I'm not going to use my vacation. Yeah. I'm going to save it, because in the old days, you could cash that 2 weeks of vacation out and get an extra check. So to me, it was a revenue opportunity, right? It was a way to lighten my load. I wasn't going to Cancun anyway, so it didn't really matter. But the one thing that I do at TMC was we implemented a use it or lose it policy. Okay. And the first 3 or 4 years, we actually paid people's vacation out at the end of the year. What we do now is you can roll over 40 hours. Okay. I've got people that have worked for me for 15 years, 10 years. I acquired a company that was older, so we grandfathered those people in. I've got people that get 4 and 5 weeks of vacation a year. Well, I tell them, you got to use it. You can only roll over 40. So the one thing that we do is we really mandate that people take their vacations. A lot of people don't think they need it, but I really feel like people need to go recharge their batteries. Yeah. And I'm probably the worst at it. I am the worst at, because my vacation, I love what I do so much that sometimes when all hell is breaking loose, if I could just get to my desk in my office, it's like a charging station for me. So vacation is something that we do. Another thing that we've really tried to do is cross training. Okay. Because what we've realized is that, okay, so my operations manager, her role is ops, primarily recruiting. Well, we're a little bit slow on that side now. So we started to train her in procurement services. So now she's a backup. It gives her something to do when she's slow, but it's also a break from the norm. Yeah. Right. It gets her out of the monotony. So that's something that we've been trying to do, is do more cross training, introduce people into different functions. Everybody should have somebody in the company that they can back up. And I just feel like it's a break. Yeah. In the old days, it was nothing for me to call people up and say, hey, man, let me hear your numbers. And they'd be like, it's Saturday morning. I'm like, okay, I needed your numbers from last night. All right, let me get them. I don't do that anymore. We're not asking people, if you're sick, take the day off and get well. Not, can I work from home today? Because what I find is if you're sick, if you're too sick to come in the office, take the time off and recharge your battery. So I've tried to get a little kinder and gentler in my old age. But it's really, I realize my job is to tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. Yeah. Make people take a vacation day, even if they don't want to. You know what? I don't care if you sit on your couch for the next 7 days and watch Jerry Springer. I don't care, but you're not going to be in TMC. and I just think that helps. But talk to me about, because I'm thinking about, when we talk about from the human aspect, right? I'm thinking about relationships. Yeah. I'm thinking about parenthood. I'm thinking about, just being a mom. Yeah. And you get burned out on those things. How can you proactively address those things? Or what are some tips?
So one thing that I would take in consideration, so I'm a firm believer that life is more and than or. So a lot of times we like to separate this or that, work or home, kids or relationship, or like we try to compartmentalize, but it's compound. So looking, it's not like, well, how can I make life easier at home? Well, doing things across the board makes life easier at home. Doing things across the board makes it easier at work. Like you'll have a better working day if you have a better home life in the morning. Just that, like you'll have a better home life if you've got a better, if your work is not bleeding into all everything. Like you don't get home at 5 and then your boss is gonna call you. Saturday's my day to sleep or spend with the kids, but the boss is gonna call you first thing in the morning. So instead of being able to go to the little league game, I got to have these reports ready. So,
yeah. And I've been very guilty of that, as I mentioned earlier. Terrible with that.
But if you're looking at, well, there are people who will say like, well, I don't have room. I can't relax. Like if I take my foot off the gas, this whole world is going to fall apart. Yeah. I'm the one. I got to keep 22 plates spinning at all times. That becomes the thought process when you're in the middle of it. But there's a what business you probably like a negative return. Mm-hmm. Like when you stay in that space, you're busy, but you're not effective.
Yes, yeah, diminishing returns.
Definitely. Yeah. So as much as we think that I have to have my hands all over everything, I have to be the one that does this, that, and the third. Yeah, but you keep showing up every day at 60%, 50%, 40%, 30%, as opposed to trying to figure out ways to how can I delegate? Yeah. Are there ways that I'm gonna have to figure out a way. I have to put myself and my rest and my healing as much as a priority as I'm gonna have to see it like I see my job. Yeah. I'm gonna have to see it like I see, because that's big. Like the people who you get yourself stressed out, you get yourself burnt out, you get yourself where I can't think straight, I can't see straight, I can't, yeah. And it's going to affect everything you touch.
It does. I want to come back to you on it because I still want to get some tips. Yeah. But I think I mentioned work with some young people last weekend in the Eagle Investor Group. And we were talking about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I'm a big fan of that. Yeah. And one of the things that I enjoy the most when he talks about sharpening the saw. Yeah. And there's a story that he talks about. He's walking through the forest, and there's a guy that's got this big old long saw, and all the teeth are broken off of it. He's about 1/10 of the way into this tree, and he's sawing back and forth. And the guy says, "Hey, man, why don't you stop and sharpen the saw?" And the guy says, "I don't have time. Can't you see I'm busy trying to cut this tree down?" And I think, that's how it gets, right? We get to where we're not sharpening the saw. So when I talk about sharpening the saw, I'm talking about physically. Yeah. Am I eating right? Am I exercising right? Am I taking care of my body? Mentally, am I reading? Am I studying? Right? Emotionally, am I getting in touch with the relationship? Am I calling my baby brother when I need somebody to talk to get some input? And then spiritually, whatever you believe in, whether it's meditation or prayer, I think that those 4 items are about sharpening the saw. And I think we don't do, when you start talking about burnout, work-life balance, we don't spend enough time taking care of ourselves. Yeah. Right. We don't spend, no one sits on their deathbed and says, I wish I'd have spent just a little more time at work. Yeah. If I did a couple more Saturdays, right? But I want to get back to, I like where you were going. I hate to interrupt. I just didn't want to miss that point. But the tips, right? From a personal perspective, right? From that relationship where she's sick of me or I'm sick of her or I'm sick of my kids, right? And I'm sick of this house and everything in it, right? I don't even want to go home. Yeah. Which is sometimes why we spend so much time at work, because we don't want to go home. Yeah. But other than the obvious, like let's take the family on vacation, what are some tips that or suggestions that you would make to somebody in their home life trying to get some balance and avoid some burnout?
So the first thing is can you identify when it's happening? So a lot of times, like I said, we don't pick up on it until the engine light is on and the smoke's coming from under the hood and the steering wheel locks up. That's when we realize we burnt out. But can you catch it? Can you start to realize, okay, I'm starting to get irritable. I'm starting to get brain fog during the day. I'm starting to get, this, I can't seem to shake this headache. Like I'm starting to get, there's some signs that are starting to show up that I'm starting to get there. So can I start to be proactive and not wait until the hood is up and the smoke is coming out to try to catch it?
Right.
So the first thing is to start to becoming aware of our own patterns of behavior. Okay, because I guarantee you the people around you know. Like they're like, oh, he getting like that again. But you know what's next?
Right.
You know what she about to do. Like they're aware of the signs around you. So if you can't pick them up yourself, talking to the people that are around you and getting maybe a better understanding of how you are. So if you're saying for tips, like I said, if we just can't see it in ourselves, if we got the blinders on, talk to the people who spend that time with you because they know. And so being able to catch it, and when it's being brought to you, being in a position to hear it, because we'll defend standing on this particular point. This road is going to lead to burning out.
Okay.
So when somebody's trying to talk to us about getting off it, standing on it only means you're going to hit the wall. So being open to receive when somebody's like, okay, you might want to, you might want to take a nap.
Right.
I know you said you're going to go back tonight and go back to work, but you might want to, I got to do this right now. Can it wait till the morning? You might just want to go to bed. We'll come back at it tomorrow.
Right.
No, but I got tomorrow. This. Well, let's just come back at it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like
I like that. I like that. Again, I've been reading all this COVID lately. It comes down to and I'll speak on myself.
Yeah.
It requires a different type of listening.
Yeah.
Because one thing I can tell you is, when you're approaching burnout, and I don't know that I necessarily get burned out. I just sometimes get worn out. I'm just worn out, but, and I want to go down to the point that we're talking about avoiding burnout.
Yeah.
I do want to, before we hang up, talk about, okay, I'm already burned out. Can I recover?
Yeah.
But, when I listen to what you say, one of the things that I'm trying to do better is listening with my eyes and my heart, not just with my ears.
Yeah.
Because I really believe that when a person is approaching burnout, a lot of the times what they're telling us isn't what they mean. It's easy to take it out of context because they're already frustrated.
Yeah.
I think the young people say they in their feelings.
Yeah.
They feeling some type of way about something.
Yeah.
But I really do think that there's a point where maybe if we can be better, more active and empathetic listeners, then maybe, and that instead of me just thinking and say, oh, wow, maybe there's some things that I can do. Let me go ahead and take the trash out. Let me fix the sink. Let me do the things I'm supposed to do to make sure that I'm not contributing to what I can see is becoming a frustrating situation.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
Right. I know I love talking about prevention because that's really it, right? Let's prevent this going bad before it goes bad. But we didn't catch it in time.
Okay.
So now I'm burned out. Let's talk about addressing burnout, right? Because what I hate for the answer to be professionally is I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
I'm looking. But I can also imagine on the personal side that it becomes divorce, separation, split up, beating your kids, whatever. So what are your thoughts there? Like I'm beyond the prevention. Yeah. I've not just hit the wall, but I'm on the other side and I'm rolling down the hill.
Yeah. So one thing to always keep in mind is that we don't see with our eyes, we see with our mind. So when you look at something, you're just seeing something. Your brain processes and internalizes what this thing is that you're looking at.
Okay.
And then we personalize what it means to us. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this was what it is this is what we've interpreted this as, and this is how we're seeing it and what we're doing with it.
Okay.
So when we're in that space of burning out, there's a particular perspective that we have in that space of being burnt out. So everything that we're looking at is through the lens of someone who's burnt out. And what that can look like is hopelessness. It can look like Like just the world's against me, my back's against the wall, it's me against the world, I'm by myself. Like that's the way we're interpreting what we're saying. If I don't do it, nobody else will do it. I don't have anybody to do these. Like that's the way we're seeing the world. So keeping that in mind, like, okay, I'm not looking at this from clear 2020 step back, like surveying it. So keeping it in mind, like, okay, so when I tell myself I'm I'm frazzled, I don't have anybody to help, is that really true? Or did somebody ask me and I told them no because I'd rather do it myself?
Wow.
Did somebody suggest help and I told them no because you're not going to do it the way I do it? Did I tell, you know what I mean? And then we start really look, okay, because the lens I see things out of in this space, I'm not looking at this with the most efficient or effective set of eyes. I'm looking at this through a position of being burnt out. So way that you need to have a particular way of listening, there also needs to be a particular way of seeing, of understanding that, okay, I'm not even seeing this the best right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like that. I didn't know you was going to spend this hour talking about me, but but I agree. So we've talked about, foreshadowing, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing the early warning signs of maybe approaching burnout, whether it's personal or business. You've talked really about, okay, we've fallen off the cliff. We're officially burned out.
Yes.
Right. And I like that, right? I think you're relying on your circle, whether it's your circle of friends, families, coworkers, management, leadership, to be a little bit empathetic, but to also, we have to self-check.
Yeah.
We have to self-check. So let's now talk about, okay, I was on my way to getting burned out. Now I'm officially burned out.
Yeah.
What's our recovery? Now, how do we get out of that? Can you come back from it?
Oh yeah. So coming out of pandemic, so I was working insanely. Like I was doing like 80-hour work weeks coming out of COVID. And I was literally just sleep to work to sleep.
Okay.
Like all I would do was I was debating on eating versus going to bed. I was like, if I stop to eat, that's 45 minutes. I'm not gonna get to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, like you're making them kind of judgment calls.
Right. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. So it was just like, and so I had gone years without like a vacation, like a real vacation. I took 4 vacations in 2022.
Wow.
Because I had realized the first one was I didn't realize how tired I was. So I just did a lot of sleeping. Like it was just like I had to physically recover.
Okay.
Then the next one was more recreational, more, okay, now I actually have the energy to enjoy life. And then I realized that all the life I was missing is which the third one came. And then the fourth one is when I came to Texas, when I visited family. Because it was the disconnect that I was having with relatives and family and close people. Then I had that vacation. So all those different areas you're kind of talking about before, about that need to be addressed, and that physical, that mental, that I had a vacation for each of those.
Right.
Now I understand that that's not the luxury of a lot of people, to be gone every 3 months.
Yeah.
But I realized the change, and then I scaled back my hours. I reshuffled my schedule. Like I started making the adjustments to like, okay, that is not a sustainable way to live.
Right.
And so how do you recover? It's understand that, okay, I know where this road leads. So I can't have the argument with myself to justify staying on this road. I have to have the conversation with myself about what are the other roads to take. And so we can get hung up on, this is what I'm going to do. This is the way I know. This is how I'm going to. And if I can't come up with another road, then I may need to talk to somebody else who's got a different map.
Right.
So if you know that this road, like I said, you're on the road to divorce. You're on the road to, we're always arguing, we're always fighting, we can't seem to be around. We talk about we love each other, but we can't be around each other longer than 3 minutes before something's starting to come up. Like, okay, this is the road that this is on.
Yeah.
So I need to find another road, another approach to come back to being able to be around my kids. Right now, my kids either can't stand me or they run from me because they're scared, because they don't know what the burnt out version is going to be coming through the
Right.
front door.
Right.
Like, okay, what's a different approach? What's a different road? If I can't figure it out myself, reaching out to other people and either peers, man, you've been working, how'd you do it? Or professionally. Like I need some new tools. I need some other ways to do this.
Okay. I like that. So it sounds like you're saying, for lack of a better term, a reset. We've reached the burnout. We know that what we've been doing doesn't work.
Yeah.
What they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result.
So the issue with that, and when people use that quote, I know it's Einstein's theory of insanity, but the problem is that Webster's definition of perseverance is continuing in the same course of action regardless of previous outcome or even failure. So what people will justify is that they're persevering as opposed to practicing insanity.
Right.
Insanity is, well, you just keep trying this and you're doing it again. Why are you failing? You're failing. Why don't you do something different? Perseverance is telling you the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep running up this mountain. Every time you run up the mountain, you fall down. If I keep trying, one of these days I'm gonna get up it.
Yeah.
So just watching what we tell ourselves.
Right. I think when I look at myself personally, right, I started kind of in this business back in 1994, manufacturing, which led me to where I am right now.
Yeah.
And the thing that's interesting is, I went through the years where I was working 80 to 84 hours a week, 712s, and I was making money and I was buying stuff. And over time, being promoted and, finally getting into a role of executive. And I finally had somebody tell me that, I'm not telling you to not do what you're doing, but you need to accept right now that if you're going to be the CEO of TMC, you're not going to make every softball practice. You're not going to get to go to every game. Now, you'll be able to afford to put them on the team and send them to camps and this and that, but you're not going to be there. So there came a point where I had to make a decision, right? So we talk a little bit about work-life balance. Well, my decision was, okay, I'm going to tip the scales somewhat to the work side, right? And you say, well, why would you ever do that? Well, you know how I grew up, right? We grew up with not a lot of excess.
Yeah.
I'll say that I survived, so we clearly had the necessities, but we didn't necessarily have the luxuries.
Yeah.
Right. And I know that, and I don't necessarily agree with this concept today, but I wanted my kids to have the things that I didn't have. So in order for me to have that, I had to work more.
Yeah.
Because the things that, when I say the things I didn't have, I had my mama.
Yeah.
I had my stepdad. They were there, but I was like, well, maybe if they'd been at work a little bit more and with me a little bit less, we'd had a little bit more, right? And that's not really a fair statement, but, I'm talking from the perspective of a kid. But I made a decision that I wanted to make as much money as I could make and give my family more stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get burned out, because I had a clear goal, where there was, I want to make this much money this year.
Yeah.
I want to get promoted to being a general manager by the age of X. And so I never really felt burnt out.
Yeah.
But the flip side of our discussion was, I think my family was very burnt out with me. I had to understand that you can't get mad when your children treat you like an ATM machine when you're acting like an ATM machine.
Yeah.
So my kids kind of got burned out with me. And by burned out with me, I'm talking about, oh, you home? In fact, I hate when you're here, because when you're here, you're trying to be dad and there's rules and regulations and there's strictness, which as much as you work, I can do what I want to do.
Yeah.
So they had gotten burned out with me. So I had to change. And then they had to evolve, because they're like, okay, he ain't working 84 hours a week. He's only working 65 hours a week. So now I got to deal with an extra 19 hours of him every day. But, I kind of like what we're saying. It seems like self-awareness from the person that's getting burned out. I think you have to proactively decide, what do you want the end to be like? I say this all the time when I speak. begin with the end in mind. When you're in that casket, what are people going to say? Man, all he did was went to work all the time. Or, man, he was a great friend. He was a great dad. He was a great big brother. He was this and that.
Yeah.
And what are they going to say? And then everything that I do today is building that narrative to my last day.
Okay.
Right. I think I heard somebody say I'm living the dash.
Yeah.
Have you heard that one before?
Yeah.
I was born in 1969 and I died in, we're going to say 2069 for the sake of this conversation, but there's a dash in the middle.
Yeah.
And what's really important is where you live in the dash.
Yeah.
Where you live in the dash. But so I like the discussions about the recovery, right? How do we get from it? Is there anything else you want to share, even work-life balance or just dealing with burnout?
I always work under the premise of self-awareness without judgment. So if we reach the point to where we realize that this current way I'm doing this is not working, like my body's breaking down, I'm getting sick all the time, like I can't sustain this, to have that moment of clarity and awareness, to do it without the judgment of this makes me a lesser person, or I'm weak, or I'm all the ways we beat ourselves up when we have that acknowledgement that this right here is a challenge. And right now I'm burning out. Like I'm on my way to where, I could have some real physical ailments. Stress is literally killing people every day in this country because you're doing too much. Like we're taking too much on. We're not looking for help. We're not looking for rest. We're not trying to recover. So to have that moment of saying, okay, I'm getting frazzled here. Like I can't keep it. I'm losing my grip on this wheel. That is not a judgment to say that I'm, like I said, I'm a lesser of a man, lesser of a woman, lesser of an employee, less of an employer. This is just a state of reality right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to sit there and make the decisions from that position. And so to say I couldn't go to work because I had cancer does not mean I'm weak. It means, no, that's just a reality.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do.
I can't run this marathon because I got 2 broken legs. That doesn't mean I'm a weak person. It just means the reality of it is I'm not capable of doing this right now.
Right. So, I like that. So we have to put it in true context. I'll tell you something that I think about that's been difficult for me on this burnout topic, dealing with my employees.
Yeah.
And I definitely would like to hear your opinions on the personal side. Is I've had people come into my office and they say, "Hey, James, I'm burnt out. I'm not happy with the job. It's not satisfying. It has nothing to do with the money. I just, this just doesn't do it for me. I don't like coming to work here." Yeah. And as a business owner, I'm real sensitive. I take it real personal, right? Anybody that quits me, I take it so personal. Yeah. I've always felt like people don't leave companies, they leave bad bosses. Okay. So whenever somebody turns in their notice, and again, I've been around 11 years, so of course we've had people come and go, just as an entrepreneur, and even when I was in corporate America. But one of the hardest things I had to do for employees that I really cared about and valued was saying, you know what, you've outgrown the position, but I don't have any place else to put you. So I think this is where I'm not going to fire you, but we've now hit the fork in the road. Yeah. And maybe it's time for you to be someplace else, a bigger company. We're a small business. There's companies out there much larger than TMC that's going to have more training programs, more travel opportunities, bigger bonus opportunities potentially. Excuse me. So sometimes you have to just let the person go. Yeah. So because you want them to unselfishly, you want them to go be happy, even if it's going to hurt you. Yeah. So now, you think about on the relationship side. Yeah. You hit that wall, right? You're burned out. Everybody's miserable. It's not that you don't even love each other. It's just that it's always a problem. So I'll let you talk about that. I'm certainly not the person to talk relationship advice, but I'm very interested to hear about. Does there come a point where you just have to say, hey, accept that there's nothing else here. Like I'm burned out and it's for a reason.
Yeah, so I would go back to part of what you're talking about with the business side. So if you say if you're having the interpersonal relationships, where this could be siblings, romantic partnership, friendships, children dynamic, whatever, um, and you're reaching a point to where we're not happy with each other. So the same way you said business, well, I don't have any more training programs, or I don't have any more travel opportunities. I don't have. Okay, but is there an equivalent, an inverse to that within the relationship? So are there new ways we can learn to communicate? Are there new ways we can learn to experience life together? Are there new ways that we can look at approaching things? Are there things that we like? The fact of the matter is we don't get along right now based upon with the trajectory we've been on with the way we've been doing things. So are we open to new ways of doing things? Are we open to a new, a paradigm shift of the dynamic of this relationship? Like, I think siblings and parent children relationships are the epitome of that, because when you're siblings and you're 9 and 10, or better say 15 and 8, oh, you're my little sister, you my little bro, that dynamic changes when you're 35 and 28, changes when you're 55 and 48. Like we're not gonna have this conversation like I'm 8.
Right.
And the parent, child, well, as long as you're under my roof, you're following my rules, is this, and this. But once your child is 30, like, this dynamic shifts the way we communicate, the way input goes. Like, we'll make those adjustments in other areas, but sometimes we don't do them in the confines of our relationship. We don't sit there and come back to, okay, there's things that have changed. There's times that have gone by. We're in different places in our lives. Are we open to changing the way we're doing this to preserve this relationship? Because we'll do it to preserve a relationship with our mother. We'll do it to preserve a relationship with our child. But do we necessarily always do that to preserve, certain friendships or romantic relationships?
That's huge. So I like how, excuse me. I love the positive approach that you take, right? It's not, we need to change our mindsets versus bailing out. It's no different than having 2 broken legs and not running the Boston Marathon. It's a mindset shift, right? I was reading something and it talked about love being a verb.
Yeah.
Versus just an emotion, right? And if you treat the definition of, okay, not just the way I feel, but the way I'm willing to behave in order to preserve it, I think you can recover. Yeah. So I think that's good advice. I mean, so much of it's in our head. And I think the confirmation of that is how miserable you feel as soon as you break up. Then you'd be like, no, Gina, you remember the episode of Martin when he's telling her to get the stepping and hit the door. And then as soon as she slams that door, he's like flat on his belly, like, no, don't go. Yeah. A lot of that, vibrato and verbose and how we tend to carry ourselves. No, I think that's great information. I do. Yeah. So what else you got going on, man? I think we've probably given people some good stuff. Anything you have in closing?
I would just say, like, if you're starting to, for anybody, if you're starting to go through stuff, or and it maybe not even be a situation with burning out per se. Like, if you're just starting to go through some stuff and you find yourself having some challenges, that it is not a knock or an indictment on your ability to handle life, to understand that, okay, this is a challenge for me, and I may need to do some things internally, some shifts, some changes, maybe talk to somebody, outside resources to adjust for them, like to take the judgment away from our situation, and just look at something for what it is. Because I think that when we attach that judgment to things, because we can't reconcile the judgment, we don't get the help we need.
Right.
And we'll have relationships, marriages fall apart, separation with our children, friendships fall apart, business issues, we miss opportunities because of that. What we attach to that judgment of ourselves, there are a lot of steps and a lot of help and a lot of resources we don't take advantage of because we're hung up on that one piece.
Yeah, no, I think that's good stuff. And from a business professional perspective, I encourage people that if you're experiencing some burnout, if you feel like you're reaching the end of your rope or you're just unhappy, talk to your manager. That's always the first step. And not just go in complaining about the current situation, but be prepared to tell them what you'd like to see different.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll help. If you got time, vacation time, even if you don't have the finances to go to Cancun or Aruba or wherever, sometimes 5 days at home, manicuring your lawn or spring cleaning your home, it's a break, right? You don't have to look at those people that you've been looking at, every single day at work. A lot of companies, if you have medical insurance, they offer EAP, which is an employee assistance program. And you can go through your medical insurance and talk to a counselor, talk to a coach. I'm not ashamed to say I've got a counselor that I talk to. I talk to my coach. I use this forum for my own therapy. I have learned that there's no shame in talking to people, talking to intelligent people, talking to people that you can trust. But there's nothing wrong with getting that feedback or different point of view from somebody else. So just want to share that. I tell people definitely get some help. I'm going to close by sharing a quick story with you, real life story that happened this week. Um, so, we own a, staffing company. So we supply a lot of employees to our various 17 clients across the United States. So we have a young lady that comes in the office and um, I need a job. I see you've got some openings in customer service, hugely qualified, very sharp. We send her out to the client to interview. She interviews well, and they hire her on the spot.
Nice.
So all's well. I've got a customer. We've got somebody out there billing. We've provided employment to another person in our community. I'm feeling great. My client has what they need. I come in on Monday and my ops manager says, "Oh, you got to see this email." I was like, "What do you got?" She says, "We just got this from the client." I look at it and it's a Facebook post. And it's a lady that we just hired. And she's on Facebook saying, "I hate this job. Oh, I can't wait to get out of here. Oh, if this lady says one more thing to me, I'm gonna smack her." Right. And she's just going in on Facebook. And the client sees it. Now I don't know how all that works where they must have Googled her. Maybe she connected with somebody on Facebook. So I get a client that sends me something saying, "Can you please release her?" I don't know if she's going to come here and go crazy on somebody.
Yeah.
So we release her. "Well, why are you releasing me?" "Well, apparently you made some very disparaging comments on Facebook about the employer." "Well, why y'all in my business?" "Well, you put your business out there in the street, right?"
Yeah.
So it was so funny. About an hour later, or maybe Tuesday, one of my recruiters says, "Oh, check this Facebook post out." So I quit that job. I got fired from that job because of something I posted on Facebook. I'm glad because I was about to quit anyway. And I was just, it's so funny because I'm thinking she was burned out and about, she didn't work right.
Yeah.
She's calling us saying, "Well, can you place us somewhere else?" "Well, I need another job." Or, I mean, it's just amazing. And that story is very loosely related to what we've been talking about today. I just
No,
felt,
it still applies. It still
but
applies.
it's just interesting, right? And people need an outlet.
Yeah.
And I guess if there's any moral to the story, the outlet probably shouldn't be Facebook or TikTok or Instagram if you're talking about the company and the way that you pay your bills and this and that. So that's all. I mean, that's it. I just want to share that story.
Yeah, public disparaging words are usually not a good response to any relationship you're trying to preserve.
Mhm.
So talking mess about your kids on social media is probably not a good tool if you want to be close to them.
Right.
Bad mouthing your wife on the gram is not really a good way if you want things to be cool at home.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
But to anybody else out there that will be closing that, I always look at just the idea of, just understanding when you're going through it, when you're in the middle of it, that's not the most accurate interpretation of the situation.
Right.
So being open to kind of sidebar off it. You ever seen those professional eaters?
Mm-hmm.
Those people who eat, 20-pound steak and
Yeah.
It's that one of the things that they'll always tell you to do is like to eat it as much as you can, and then add in like Diet Pepsi or add in barbecue sauce because you get flavor fatigue of going through the same thing, and you need something to break it up to
Right.
continue going on. There's an equivalent in life. So whether that barbecue sauce is the gym, whether it's your meditation like you're talking about, if it's going to church, if it's something to break up when you start to feel you're getting that hole of whatever the monotonous thing is that you're finding is starting to really get to you. Maybe it's taking your wife on a vacation if you guys have been starting to get at each other's a little too much. We're getting flavor fatigue.
Right.
We need something to break this up. So
Yeah.
we don't just come in with the expectation of what it's going to be a bad day. It's going to be an argument. It's going to be frustration. So then we project that. So then it happens. So then we get confirmation bias and then we repeat it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we're just getting flavor fatigues. Let's throw something new in there.
But just to be clear,
yeah,
that means take your significant other on a vacation or ask her to buy a wig or a new dress. That don't mean flavor fatigue. You got to go get a whole nother flavor.
That don't mean you don't get up off the table.
Yeah.
You don't get from the table and get a new steak. Or switch from steak to chicken. It means while you're with your steak, get a new sauce.
I just want to be clear. You get to talk about flavor fatigue. That don't mean go from chocolate to vanilla, right?
Nah, it means you adding maybe different syrup to the same ice cream.
That's right. That's right. Okay, we clear. Hey man, where can we find you? What are you doing now, and where can we find you?
Oh man. For the coaching stuff, or if you want more information about the assessment or what, you can go to mykeystome.com, MYKEYSTOME. You can get more information on the assessment, set up a consultation, get you started if you feel so inclined. And then all social media platforms are at J Morris CEO.
Awesome. We'll be looking for you. I'm James Morris, President and CEO of TMC Workforce Solutions. If you're looking for us, whether you need a staffing company to bring great people to you, or if you're somebody looking for a job, Texas, Indiana, Kentucky, Wisconsin, going to be Georgia here soon, give us a call. Go to our website. We can direct you to who's hiring, put you to work. Got some cool stuff going on as far as working with some great groups here. If you want information on that, go to the morrismotivation.com website. And last but certainly not least, super excited. Got 2 books coming out this year, so we're going to be on the lookout for those. We've got the Entrepreneur's Encyclopedia that's coming out. So It's not a cover-to-cover read. It's about 1,800 pages of everything that we need to help us build, grow, buy, sell a business. We're going to cover HR, operations, accounting, the work. So it's a reference manual. And then I got a second book that'll be coming out late this year called The Imposter Syndrome is Fuel. So it's really about men and even me more specifically dealing with, situations that come in life, overcoming some challenges, maybe dealing with some depression, just dealing with code switching and trying to be comfortable in the various diverse environments. So hopefully it'll be something that'll make people comfortable. So hey, we're going to continue to stay active. We're going to continue to look for ways to, be a blessing to people and to help out. So, hey, brother, I think this was another great session. I think something we said is going to help somebody.
Hope so.
All right, brother. You have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Yep, you too.